Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farbach. As Karol Nawrocki was sworn in as Poland's new president on Wednesday, there are signs of tension between the nationalist head of state and Liberal Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is in Moscow for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin as Donald Trump's deadline for the Kremlin approaches for a ceasefire deal. Now, to discuss the implications for Poland and its international relations under a new president, we're joined now by Andreas Umland, analyst, Stockholm Center for Eastern European Studies. Good to have you back on TVP World. Good morning.
Thanks for having me again, Sasha. Good morning.
Andreas, we just are right at the beginning of a new presidency in Poland. That swearing-in ceremony is still currently underway, the speech in the Polish parliament. I want to start with defense, really at the very forefront. That really is key for this region. It matters for Poland very much. What kind of impact will this new President Nawrocki have, if any, on the change, of course, of defense policy for Poland and NATO and Ukraine?
I hope it will have a toughening effect on Polish and European defense policies, and that the sort of nationalist impetus that Nawrocki is bringing in his office quite obviously will actually mean stronger Polish defense, stronger European defense, and also stronger support for Ukraine. That is, to me, an open question so far. I don't know whether it will go this way, but that would be one way to interpret Polish national interest from a nationalist position, let's say a different position than the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, is taking in Germany, or the UK Independence Party took in the UK when they led basically the UK out of the European Union. So there are different interpretations of nationalism, and I hope this one will be a pro-European, pro-Polish, and pro-Ukrainian Polish nationalism.
Right. I mean, we've heard already on the campaign, and it's known that now President Nawrocki very much on a different type of level than Donald Tusk and his government, not supportive of Ukraine's membership bid. I mean, this will surely make things more complicated at the NATO meetings in the future, won't it?
If this is a principal position of Nawrocki and not something that is conditional upon Ukraine's adaptation to the European Union standards, that would be indeed a problem. One can also interpret that, of course, in a way that one says, well, Ukraine is not yet ready, and that's why it's right now too early to speak about an accession. But in a few years, Ukraine could get ready. If Nawrocki, however, takes over basically the Orban position, that Ukraine should not be in the EU, that would be a disaster, of course, because it would run counter not only to Ukrainian interests, but to the interests of most of the countries of the European Union.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask another defense question. I have some of those outtakes from his speech that he's just giving now in the parliament on the European Union. I mean, this is also something that Nawrocki campaigned on, being tougher with Brussels, more of that nationalist rhetoric. In his speech here, I'm going to read it off this now. He said he will not allow for any euro adoption, so the currency is ruled out. And he's also said that he opposes any EU treaty change. He said he wants Poland and not the European Union, but he wants a Poland that is more focused on itself. What kind of relationship can we expect, and what kind of tangibles can we expect from that and that relationship with Brussels?
I hope that, nevertheless, within the current treaty, Poland will stay course and will not basically take the approach of the already mentioned Hungarian Prime Minister Orban. That would be a disastrous development. What I hope here is simply that the rights of the nation states will be continue to be observed in the European Union. That is also not something that contradicts the European idea, and that this interpretation of Polish national interest will be in a way that actually a strengthening of the European Union on the international stage is in the Polish national interest. And that Poland can, if it takes this approach, actually take a bigger role in leading the European Union together with France and Germany. There's a lot of talk about a change from the previous sort of duopoly, you could say, the sort of the dominance of France and Germany in the, let's call it, old European Union into a triple leadership of the European Union by not only France and Germany, but also by Poland. But that will require from Poland that it does not run counter to the basics of the current European Union as it is formulated in the Lisbon Treaty. So that is still all open to me. I still hope for a good result, because these interpretations of nationalism within the European Union can be very different. And I hope that Poland is not going to become an anti-European country under its new president.
Right, and we still have to distinguish as well, just for our viewers, that there is still that difference between that cohabitation between the presidency now by Karol Nawrocki and also the government under Prime Minister Donald Tusk. So it isn't just that the policy is dictated by the president, but it will, of course, be significant in terms of actual power. Let me also ask you one thing which does look interesting is one of his comments that he made during his speech in the parliament, saying that he wants to deepen military cooperation with the Nordic countries. Now, I think the campaign is one thing, rhetoric is one thing, and we're hearing this on the defense front. How do you interpret that? And could it be that he might actually go more towards the middle now that he is elected and now that he's sworn in?
If he goes this way, if he tries to improve with his instruments the connections to the Nordic countries, that will, of course, mean that a very pro-Ukrainian stance in foreign affairs, a very Russia-critical approach, and also a pro-European approach. That is basically, as far as I can see, the approach of all the northern countries, whether the Scandinavian ones or the three Baltic countries. If Nawrocki wants basically Poland to enter this Nordic alliance, that would mean that basically Poland would fall into this general EU line of supporting Ukraine and being keen on also advancing the European Union as an international actor, which I think would be good for Polish national interest. But sometimes then narrow interpretations of national interest can come into conflict, of course, with wider interpretations that identify an EU member state's national interest with the EU's general interest on the world stage.
Mm-hmm. It's also worth noting that not that long ago it was also now former President Andrzej Duda and Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister, both in the White House in Washington, very much security being one of those things that Poland understands that does seem to be that one issue where they can't agree on. It's both governments and both of those presidencies that have focused on that. So we'll see how that does play out. Let's talk about the United States for a moment. Another big day, of course, is Steve Witkoff in Moscow today, meeting with Russian authorities, potentially Vladimir Putin himself. I mean, that meeting last time, it didn't turn out too much. There wasn't too much takeaway from that he brought back. I mean, that deadline is approaching on Friday. What do you make of Witkoff's trip now, and what can we expect in these next couple of days of his visit there in Moscow?
I don't have high expectations. Also in Ukraine, the behavior of Witkoff in Moscow was criticized. His body language was, I would say, dubious vis-a-vis Putin. And I don't think that this approach that Witkoff and the people in the White House that represent the sort of pro-Russian line have been taken vis-a-vis Putin has had any results. And on the contrary, it has made Putin more aggressive. It has sort of loosened his hands. And maybe Witkoff is now taking a different approach. I would very much welcome it. But the history of his diplomacy so far is not encouraging, to put it mildly. And so I don't have any expectations. I think there will be only a change in Russia's policies once the US takes material action, and not just sending signals and diplomats and making sort of friendly gestures towards Russia. This is exactly the opposite of what needs to be done, because these friendly gestures that we had from Witkoff, from Vance, from Trump so far, they have all encouraged Russia in its foreign aggressiveness.
I just want to close with one quick question. You mentioned the material action. I think that very much means sanctions. I mean, at the same time, Trump himself, someone who changes deadlines all the time, including his own opinion. Is this enough now to move the needle and change Putin's mind ultimately? Just quickly at the end.
I think the shortened deadline now is much better than this large 50-day deadline that he announced before. So this looks more serious now. But the question is, of course, what happens after Friday, and whether there will be actually sufficient material action, not only sanctions, but also weapons deliveries to make Russia change its behavior.
And we'll see that. And of course, we'll be watching. I'm sure we'll analyze it in the next few days. It's going to be a big day indeed. So look, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Andreas Umland, for all your analysis today and your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching World Talks. But there's much more coming up right here on TVP World, so stay tuned. Goodbye.